Ben Wittrock, you are in. You just received an Emmy nomination for your work in the Assassination of Gianni Versace, American Crime Story. What was your reaction to that when you read the episode script for the episode that that you submitted? Don't Ask, Don't Tell. What was your reaction to that?
When I first read it, you mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I continued to be surprised by the writing of that show, and it really, though, Tom Rob Smith, who wrote all of the episodes, continued to kind of surprise me in the direction that it went. I kind of knew a little bit about where they were going to go with it, but I didn't quite expect that the entire episode would sort of follow Jeff's own little arc, sort of mini arc. And I just really admired the way that he crafted these episodes in terms of having a kind of the basic through line of Cunanan and Versace, and then these sort of offshoots based on sometimes the victims. At the end, you sort of follow the father figure, and then so each character kind of gets their own self-contained episode, and then that kind of works its way back into the thing. So I was very impressed by that. I was very surprised and happy how much time they took kind of addressing Jeff's own coming to terms with his identity and his sexuality, and how complicated and contradictory it was for him to come out as a gay man and come out against a policy, Don't Ask, Don't Tell, which he disagreed with, but he was fundamentally kind of very patriotic, very loving of the military, kind of upright, responsible young man, And so all those kind of contradictions, I think often I'm looking for like, how many contradictions can we fit into one person? That just excites me. And so all those elements were there. Yeah.
And I loved how it was. You mentioned how it was structured, because we first saw your character in the previous episode, but we only saw you for like 2 minutes, and then you're bludgeoned to death.
Yeah, my friends called me and they were like, "Man, you were filming that for so many months, and that's it? Like just for those 2 scenes, and then you were dead? I mean, what were you doing all that time?" I was like, "Guys, it works backwards. Figure it out."
It was, but what was also brilliant about that was in watching the next episode, the Don't Ask, Don't Tell episode. It just made everything in that episode all the more tragic,
right?
Because you're watching, like, because in a way, like, Cunanan was this life preserver for Jeff, but it was also his undoing, unfortunately, and it was just it just encapsulated the tragedy of it so much.
Yeah, and it really is. I mean, that is what tragedy is like knowing that the ending is going to be terrible, and yet being along for the ride and hoping, maybe still hoping illogically, that things will turn out differently. You can watch Romeo and Juliet as much as you want, and if it's well done, I mean, they tell you at the very beginning, star-crossed lovers who die at the end. Like the prologue says that. And still, if it's a well-done production, you're watching on pins and needles. Like, hopefully this time they'll wake up and find each other, So I think that playing with that element of like knowing what the end is, knowing that it's going to end in tragedy, makes I don't know, it does something specific to us as an audience. I think kind of engages us, hopefully, in a different kind of way.
So in the lead up to shooting your scenes for this series, did you speak with anyone who had lived through Don't Ask, Don't Tell in the military?
I talked to some people who had been there, who had been in the Navy at that time. We had like a really good Navy advisor. He I think some people are. It's a sensitive subject, People don't open up that easily. But the fodder that I really got was there's this interview in the episode that my face is like in shadow, and I'm talking about the policy, and that's a very, very accurate reenactment of a real interview that I got to see. That I sort of had on hand on like my phone all the time to sort of reference all like continuously throughout the shoot, which is really him, like trying to be anonymous, having this very, very honest, in-depth conversation with this reporter for the show 48 Hours, I believe. So that was kind of my biggest go-to in terms of like character reference research.
And what was also really magnificent about it was the dynamic between you and Darren Criss as Conan, and especially when it all just comes to a head in that I don't know if it's the final scene, but right towards the end, with you just accosting him in your apartment. What was it like to film that? What was that dynamic like between you two?
That was a long day. That was like after that day was done, it was like clock. I felt like we put in a good day's work. We played with it a lot. We did a lot of different variations in terms of how heightened and how confrontational it was versus some versions of being more wanting to avoid it, wanting to be a little more self-torture. And ultimately the thing that was working was like restraining, and then finding a moment to just fucking explode and go at each other. No holds barred, take off the boxing gloves. But it was like all of working with Darren and on the show a lot and Daniel Minahan, who directed that episode. There's a lot of great experimentation, a lot of finding it as we went. There wasn't really a pre-planned way that they wanted it to go. We were we were exploring new territory, really. Finding it.
Did it ever sort of? I'm trying to think of the right word here. Did it ever sort of get you that when you realize you're acting in something that showing how shitty things were for gay people that was only 20 years ago? I mean, was that like? Do you understand what I'm asking? Like, is that just sort of like a very startling thing to realize? Yeah,
definitely is, and how recent it was, and yet how kind of alien it seems to my own way that I like live my life. I have so many openly gay friends, but I also know like people like lots of older gay people who really responded to that. People kind of really lived through that period and maybe are now or out, but at the time weren't. And I think that it really affected people. Like I had a real like heart to hearts with some of people that saw that later and were like, that was my life, a little bit. But yeah, it is crazy. It's crazy how far we've come and how, not far also.
One of the other things that I thought was so interesting about this is that for a lot of the Cunanan story, there's just a lot of stuff that we just don't know for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of stuff, even in the Maureen Orth book that the series is based on, some of it is kind of just filling in blanks. And I was wondering, was that weird to try to portray something of which there's a lot about?
I mean, it's like we know where things ended and we know where things began, but a lot of the stuff behind closed doors, obviously, no one really knows what happened because most of the people who were there are dead now. I think, like anything, I mean, it's historical fiction. It's like these events really happened, but we have to use artistic liberty to fill in all the blanks, and that's really where the emotional arc of it comes through. It's sort of history has given us the exoskeleton, and so it's your job as an actor and as the writer, the creative team, to sort of fill in the blanks to bring that to life. It's like that old saying about never let truth get in the way of a good story.
It's very true.
Yeah.
So this is the third time that you've worked on a Ryan Murphy project. You were, of course, on American Horror Story Freak Show season 4, and or actually, I think it's the fourth time you've worked with Murphy. I'm sorry.
Technically, it's the fifth because I did this movie, The Normal Heart, before that on HBO.
I was counting that because
you were okay, great.
Yeah, I have Freak Show, Hotel, Normal Heart because oh god, I will never forget watching that scene, your scene with my roommate. We were a wreck at the end of it. And this one, what was the other one?
Oh well, it's almost unfair to say because I'm unrecognizable in my one episode of Roanoke. Story. I have this Jether was my name. I died pretty quickly, but I was like one of the inbred hillbilly monsters. And it's all shot in grainy, like it looks like it's shot on cell phone. So even if you could see my face, you probably couldn't tell because I also had this crazy prosthetic stuff on. But yeah, technically I was in Roanoke, so I guess that's 3.
So when I was at, you've worked on so many projects that have been associated with Ryan Murphy. What does he bring to a project that makes him so desirable to work with?
A lot of things. The first thing is that you're going to work with great people, like on camera, off camera. He has such an amazing repertory company of actors that you're going to get to do some really juicy stuff with, so that's just already fulfilling. Also, he's going to challenge you. He's going to challenge you in a way that is specific to you. Like he knows what you've done before, and he's going to find something that's sort of goes in the polar opposite direction of that to sort of stretch your actor muscles. And also there's the fact that I feel like whatever he does generally is somewhat it's talking about in some way some kind of zeitgeist, some kind of cultural conversation that we're having. Like even Freak Show is really about the freaks are any ostracized group of people, be that from race or sexual orientation or what have you. And so even the stuff that seems sort of totally off the wall and bonkers, there is he somehow there's always some element of something that you find very current and alive and sort of on the pulse of right now. That I don't know, just always seems to affect people. I mean, that's why these shows are so freaking popular.
What's also really interesting is that you brought up all these amazing people that you've through the Ryan Murphy projects that you've gotten to work with. Is there any one person that you were most excited or intimidated to do scenes with?
I mean, I've gotten pretty lucky. I had a lot of fun stuff to do with Sarah Paulson that first year, and both of her heads. And I liked, and there was I really like Bet, but Dot is such a bitch, oh God, not Dot again. No, she was really astounding in that. I obviously had fun working with Lady Gaga. I mean, that was sort of a pinch me, is this real life situation. And she was really just such a brave, impressive force. And it's been cool to kind of get into her sphere a little bit. I only had one scene with Jessica Lange, but I want more. That was fun. Kathy Bates has been an amazing person to work with, and is also an incredible philanthropist in her own right. So, yeah, I mean, I've just been lucky. I mean,
it's one of those things where you look back on and you're like, wow, I've been
really
part of all of this.
Yeah, is this real life? Yeah.
So, as I said before, you got nominated for your second Emmy this year. This one for Crime Story. You were nominated for Freak Show 4 years ago, I believe. Was it 4 years or 3 years? But one of them.
2014. Yeah, I guess it was.
Yeah. What was a nomination morning like for you, finding out that you had gotten nominated again?
This was disbelief. This was Sarah, my wife, read me the list, and I was like, "I think you're looking at you must be looking at the wrong. You're looking at the cast list, right? Or this is like the nominated to be nominated list." She's like, "No, this is the list," and it was truly sort of out of the blue, random Wednesday morning. Wait, like, oh, my life has changed now than it was 5 seconds ago. You know.
So it wasn't your agent or anyone calling you.
Really?
Was it? It was your wife who was looking at the nominations, and she said, "Hey, look at this."
Yeah. And I was like making coffee. I was kind of early, it's like 8 a.m. when that happens. I was like, "What are you talking about?" And then suddenly, like, my phone starts to vibrate like for the rest of the day. It's funny the way they do it, because they announce some of them live, but then they put the rest up online, and it takes. I mean, Television Academy, I love you, obviously, but the website could use a little. Guiding, some help, because you have to like click to a whole lot of things to find out what the nominees are. It really takes a second because they don't make it easy for you.
No, this year was weird because usually right after the nominations come out, you can go and find the link of the PDF of the whole, 7,000 pages of all the different categories that they have. And but this year it took a while. For some reason, there was something going on and it wasn't loading properly.
I was like, give me my trophy.
I almost threw a computer out a window, but then I remembered I was at a place of work, and then I was like, yeah, that's probably not good.
Yeah. You had some young tech savvy people that come
in. Actually, just one other question. What else do you have coming up down the road? We were talking before we started this about some of your theater work. Do you have any theater work that's coming up on the horizon?
No plays on the new horizon. Last year I spent about 7 months in New York. I did like 2 plays back to back. I did Othello with Daniel Craig and David Oyelowo, which was amazing, and then I did Glass Menagerie on Broadway with Sally Field, and so that I really got I got the theater bugs well exercised. If that makes sense. So no plays that I know of, although I'm always hungry to do a play. There's a movie called Judy, which will be out next year, about Judy Garland that I'm in. That Renee Zellweger's playing her, and I think it's going to be really cool.
Oh, I know a lot of people are going to be waiting for that one.
I know. For better or for worse, right?
Exactly.
There's a movie coming out soon called If Beale Street Could Talk, which is Barry Jenkins' next film, which I have a part in, which is beautiful. It's like
I know a lot of people.
Yeah, that's going to be really cool. And there's just also this movie called Semper Fi, this military film that I did. I think they'll come out, I don't know, sometime soon. So a lot of things in the pipeline. There's a couple smaller movies, some interesting indies that I did that are kind of making the festival circuit right now too. So we'll see if they come to a theater near you or a screen near you.
Well, we're definitely hoping. Finn, I can't thank you enough for this. We wish you all the best on Emmy night. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you so much.